Chapter 3365. The fusion of the two god relics energy was still moving about excitedly. The blood-colored glow encircled Yi Qing Luo's surroundings. It enveloped Yi Qing Luo within it, like a blood-colored protective cover. This scene made the infuriated Ghost King squint his sinister eyes. That sinister and ruthless face was a bit pale. "Young lady, you really don't want your life anymore." The terrifying profound glow on Yi Qing Luo's body was still increasing. Ghost King's face was gloomy as his palm wind moved and struck towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. Bam! Ghost King had no way to get close to Yi Qing Luo. His body was sent flying by a strong impact. It was the blood-colored protective cover which encircled Yi Qing Luo's surroundings. Ghost King fell onto the ground and was forced to slide a few meters back by the impact. His robe was cut by the sharp bones and stones on the ground, and a large piece of flesh was cut off. His brows twitched in pain as he swiftly sat up straight and looked towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. How is this possible? How could her profound grade continue to increase? Isn't she afraid that her body can't take such a load? Ghost King frowned in disbelief. The place where he fell was not far from where the Palace Lord of Secluded Palace was tied up. Coincidentally, the Palace Lord of Secluded Palace could hear Ghost King's words clearly. Palace Lord of Secluded Palace was extremely shocked. He looked at Yi Qing Luo's right hand, which was broken by Ghost King as it kept on encircling Yi Qing Luo and seeping into her body. Following that, he looked at Yi Qing Luo's profound energy, as it continued to rise at an extremely terrifying speed. Even in Secluded Palace, using the method which he instructed, no one was able to do it like what Yi Qing Luo was doing now, to keep on rising terrifying power. If this went on, it would really be like what Ghost King said. Yi Qing Luo's body was unable to take the load of this energy. Once she suffered the backlash from the profound jade heart, Yi Qing Luo would die. Palace Lord of Secluded Palace struggled anxiously. Palace Lord of Secluded Palace's movement naturally attracted Ghost King's attention. The Ghost King looked at the Palace Master of the Nether Palace with an ugly expression. "How many divine weapons does she have? Didn't you set up a trap for this little girl and His Majesty before coming here? How could there be a change?" The Palace Lord of Ethereal Palace stared intently at Yi Qing Luo's direction. Hearing the Ghost King's words, the eyes under the black cloak flickered slightly. Unconsciously, his gaze became gentler. Indeed, as long as Yi Qing Luo was around, no matter how meticulous the plan was, there will be changes. Because the girl herself was a variable. Yi Qing Luo didn't know that Ghost King and the Palace Lord of Secluded Darkness were astonished by the current situation. There was only one feeling in her heart: damn it. She was dying of pain. After the power of the two divine artifacts fused together, the profound chi seemed to have been injected with stimulants as it surged continuously in his body. It passed through every tendon and vein. It passed through every inch of flesh. And this dash. It was as if a sharp blade had ruthlessly sliced him. It was like a ball of raging fire, burning furiously. If it wasn't for the fact that her willpower was strong enough, she probably would have fainted from the pain. Chapter 3366. Lass, this is the profound heart Jade's warning to you. Old man Tsang sighed and knew that no matter how he dissuaded her, he would not be able to dispel Yi Qing Luo's thoughts. The more clearly, the more worried old man Tsang was. Looking at Yi Qing Luo's head full of cold sweat from the pain and her forcefully enduring the pain, old man Tsang also felt that he was empathizing with her. If one looked closely, one would probably be able to see that Yi Qing Luo's delicate body was currently trembling slightly. Nothing. She closed her eyes and deeply felt the profound energy in her body. Although, her body was in pain. Like it was about to swell. Like it was about to tear her soul apart. But Yiqing Luo's heart was not the least bit flustered. She was not trying to be brave. But, he felt a strange power. That was the power mixed in with the pain. She did not know how to describe this feeling. There was an inexplicable kind of obsession. As long as she could combine the power of the divine artifact and deeply find that mixed power, it would definitely be of great help to her. This was like touching a barrier when her profound grade was promoted. As long as she broke through that barrier, then she would be able to promote. Her strength could be promoted. This mysterious and unfathomable power, it was a barrier. Break this barrier. She could completely conquer the divine artifact. Not only that, she couldn't use the divine artifact. But, although she had the obsession, in fact, it was not that easy to achieve. At least, the pain in her body had already made her somewhat unable to withstand it. She knitted her thin brows tightly. Her breathing was slightly hurried. She wanted to calm her mind. He tried his best to see that strange power clearly, to explore that barrier. But the more she wanted to explore it, that pain in her body that was like a sharp blade cutting through her bones and a raging flame deepened a bit. Mother asterisk cur. What the hell was this power? Yiqing Luo tried her best to maintain her consciousness. Oh! Suddenly, the two powers of the divine artifact fiercely shook in her body. Yiqing Luo only felt that something was expanding in her body. She even felt that his body was like a balloon that was getting bigger and bigger. It grew bigger and bigger. Her heart skipped a beat, and her breathing became even tighter. The feeling of pain. She didn't even hear old man Tsang's worry. His forehead was covered with dense cold sweat. Her delicate body trembled even more violently. Just when she felt that her body was about to explode, suddenly, he felt a gentle feeling in his head. It was as if a warm and soft palm was gently caressing her head. Then, her eyelashes, which were tightly shut, suddenly trembled. Her delicate body also trembled. Soon after, the heart-wrenching pain and burning sensation in his body were extinguished by this warm and refreshing feeling. What followed closely behind? It was a comfortable, soft, and cool feeling that flowed through her limbs and bones. The power of the fusion of divine weapons. Surprisingly, he was also well behaved. Lass! Lass! Beside his ear was old man Tsang's anxious and panicked shouts. Yiqing Luo was startled by this sound as she opened her eyes. In her mind, old man Tsang's joyful voice rang again. Lass, you scared me to death. Luckily you're fine, fine. Yiqing Luo was still in a daze. She moved her body. She discovered that her body seemed to have been reborn. Light like a feather. Even the right shoulder that was broken by Ghost King had recovered its original liveliness. Star. Chapter 3367. Was this the change caused by the fusion of the divine weapon? In other words, she succeeded. The change in Yiqing Luo's body. As a weapon spirit, old man Tsang could naturally feel it. After confirming that Yiqing Luo's body wasn't affected by the power of the divine weapon fusion, and instead successfully conquered the power of the divine weapon, he was so ecstatic that he almost jumped out of the azure dew bracelet. Girl, you're amazing. How did you do it? You actually withstood the power of the divine weapon fusion. It's simply incredible. Old man Tsang had hypothesized many possibilities. He also thought that Yiqing Luo could conquer the power of the divine weapon fusion, but he never thought, not only did she conquer the power of the divine weapon fusion. Because of this power, her body had been reborn. It could be said that Yiqing Luo now was the new her. Her body was even more perfect than before after she used the cleansing marrow pill. Almost no impurities could be found in her body. It could even be said, Yi Qing Luo was about to leave the mortal body. Hearing old man Song's shock, Yi Qing Luo was slightly startled. She was surprised. Old man Song, just now, when my breath was in a mess and I was almost devoured by the power of the two divine weapons, wasn't it you? Wasn't it you who placed your palm on my head and helped me suppress the power of the divine weapons? Just now at the critical moment. That soft palm on her head, wasn't it old man Song's? What? What palm? What suppression? Old man Song was at a loss. Yi Qing Luo was startled again. Her long eyelashes slightly trembled and immediately lowered her eyes. Not old man Song. So where did the energy that helped her just now come from? Who was it? Why? Would choose to help her suppress the power of the divine weapon? Let her successfully conquer the divine weapon? Girl, don't worry about the palm or suppression, look over there. Old man Song suddenly reminded. Yi Qing Luo recovered from her deep thoughts and looked towards the direction where the profound energy was the most turbulent. Ah ah ah, a deafening roar sounded, shaking the heavens and earth. Only to see the disheveled Ghost King, both feet firmly planted into the ground, both hands clenched into fists, his entire body tensed up, every line smooth. He roared again and again. The profound energy in his body was also rising at an extremely terrifying speed. His clothes and black hair fluttered in the strong wind as he bared his fangs and brandished his claws. He must have realized what you were thinking and wanted to take the opportunity to cripple you. Old man Song solemnly said, although you fused with the power of two divine weapons, this power isn't yours after all. I'm unable to estimate how long it will last. So, you must be careful. The opponent's profound rank is not low, and his overall strength is definitely not weak. Yi Qing Luo pursed her pink lips and responded seriously. She looked at the Ghost King warily. Even after fusing with the power of two divine artifacts, old man Song still warned her to be careful of the Ghost King. From this, it could be seen how terrifying the Ghost King's strength was. Facing such an unknown and powerful enemy, she had to be careful. Just at this moment, that man who was howling suddenly shot his vision towards Yi Qing Luo. In his eyes, a valiant profound aura shot out, two gusts of cold wind directly towards Yi Qing Luo's face. Xiao! A strong wind cut through the sky. Chapter 3368. But the Yi Qing Luo who had been reborn had an extremely acute sense of danger. In the instance when Ghost King's vision looked over, Yi Qing Luo reflexively leaped up and turned into a red ray, disappearing into the air. Young lady, I didn't expect you to have two divine armaments on you. It's not a waste for me to specially rush over today. Ha ha ha. Ghost King's words had just ended. He had accurately located Yi Qing Luo's current position. Yi Qing Luo had not even stabilized herself when Ghost King's next attack had already arrived. Yi Qing Luo's fingertips moved and the glower flame fan opened up, suddenly releasing a red barrier. Violent and ferocious profound energy crashed onto the barrier. Rumble, two bursts of energy suddenly exploded. Violent profound energy blended with the heaven and earth. The surrounding air seemed to have been frozen by an invisible force. The explosive aura made Yi Qing Luo's breathing difficult. This Ghost King was indeed not to be underestimated. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased tightly as she speedily evaded Ghost King's attack. Her figure was as swift as lightning. Her movements were as smooth as flowing water. Violent and terrifying profound energy kept spreading outwards. After exchanging over 10 moves with Ghost King, the both of them took a step back. But Yi Qing Luo's expression didn't change. But the fishy sweetness in her throat indicated that she wasn't as calm as she looked. This round of exchange. In fact, she was the one at a disadvantage. What was the background of this Ghost King? His ability had actually reached such a level. Even the power of two divine armaments combined. couldn't even contend against him. If she didn't take the risk earlier, wouldn't she be carried by Ghost King directly to secluded palace now? Yiqing Luo's fingers clenched tightly, feeling the surrounding heaven and earth's profound energy twining around her. After the transformation of her body, after her ability had increased, her body's transformation was indeed huge. Now, she could even feel the presence of the palace lord of secluded palace who was tied to one side. One must know that before this, even if the palace lord of secluded palace stood in front of her, she wouldn't be able to sense his presence. But now she could sense it. This meant that the palace lord's ability and now her ability after fusing with the divine armaments were on par. And now, she was probably no match for the Ghost King. That was to say, Ghost King was more powerful than the palace master of Gloomy Palace. Who exactly was this Ghost King? He didn't look like he was from the Dark Nether Palace. However, he had been helping the Palace of Netherworld. Could it be, was he also an outsider like Zhu Wuxin, who worked with the Palace of Darkness? The power of a divine artifact is indeed extraordinary. Even a mortal like you can grow to this extent, the Ghost King laughed coldly. His face was filled with a satisfied grin. He slowly raised his hands and laughed a little crazily. Divine artifact. I must get it. Ha ha ha. This is my divine artifact. When he raised his hand, it brought along a violent and ferocious profound energy. Endless waves of qi began to surge. The dark and gloomy sky also seemed to have turned into a ball of mist, and started to gather towards the center of his palm bit by bit. That terrifying aura. It was as if it could destroy heaven and earth. Ghost King. You can't do that. Seeing this, the palace master of Gloomy Palace struggled anxiously. The ropes that bound him cut his skin, and blood seeped out. Chapter 3369. Ghost King's sinister laughter didn't stop because of the palace lord's words. The horrifying aura was still circling around. His eyes were filled with sinister viciousness. She has the protection of the god relic, she won't die. Anyway, what you want is the profound jade heart in her body. Saying that, he licked his lips greedily as his voice became increasingly sinister. If I want to get the god relic, the only way is to destroy her willpower and mental power. Of course, the most convenient way was to kill Yiqing Luo. But Secluded Palace didn't allow it. Then, he could only destroy Yiqing Luo's willpower and mental power. Then he could cut off the connection between the god relic and Yiqing Luo. Ghost King narrowed his sinister eyes as his vast profound energy slowly moved towards Yiqing Luo's direction. After testing the power of the god relic, I am very satisfied with it. Enough talking to yourself. Looking at the Ghost King's powerful and boundless profound qi, which was charging towards him like a hot knife through butter, the Ghost King's eyes widened. Yiqing Luo's eyes suddenly turned cold. The glower flame fan moved. A fire dragon was formed, brandishing its claws as it circled in midair. Her brows were cold, her eyes were flowing with a burning battle intent. The fire dragon roared towards the sky, following Yiqing Luo's control. It went against the vast profound energy released by Ghost King. Not good. Old Man Sang's voice rang. The azure dew bracelet followed closely. Lass. He's serious now. You can't go head on. Old Man Sang attempted to break the azure dew bracelet and come out to help Yiqing Luo. Just as the fire dragon was roaring upwards, Yiqing Luo felt something was wrong. Because, Ghost King's arrogance. It was totally different from when they exchanged blows previously. If at that time, she could still exchange over 10 moves with Ghost King. But now, she was basically going to be killed in a second. Thinking of Ghost King's words earlier, Yiqing Luo's heart trembled. Could it be? Ghost King was actually testing the god relic's evil power on her, to see how much impact it could have on her. Now the test was over. He was going to use his full strength. Yi Qing Luo had no chance to hesitate. Ghost King's vast and boundless profound energy directly severed the fire dragon which Yi Qing Luo had released. Yi Qing Luo's eyes turned cold as she displayed her footwork. The glowing flame fan in his hand spun rapidly. Red light lingered and silver threads shot out. The silver threads swiftly wound around Yi Qing Luo and formed a silver-edged shield. Red profound light enveloped it. Yi Qing Luo's finger hooked again. The silver-edged shield smashed into the Ghost King's attack. It was this momentary pause. Yi Qing Luo squinted her eyes as her footsteps moved swiftly. Teleportation secret technique. That's right, at this moment, Yi Qing Luo was displaying her teleportation secret method. This was because her previous footwork relied on her dark force to move. The Ghost King could rely on her aura to determine where she would land. But teleportation secret techniques were different. He moved silently. Even the Ghost King could not detect the fluctuation of her aura. It was too risky to use the teleportation technique. But other than that, in a short period of time, there was no better way. But she had intentionally used the glowing flame fan's thousand-year silver threads to create the silver-edged shield which should have completely attracted the Ghost King's attention. He should not have noticed that she had displayed the teleportation secret method. Indeed. Ghost King's attention earlier was indeed attracted by that silver-edged shield. But Yi Qing Luo seemed to have forgotten. In this cemetery, other than the Ghost King. Chapter 3370. The young lady instantly disappeared before his eyes. There wasn't any young lady's presence in the air. This made the palace lord's eyes widen as his eyes were filled with shock and astonishment. What kind of footwork was this? Why, couldn't he sense any fluctuation in her presence? The palace lord looked at Ghost King again. He saw Ghost King looking around, as though he was searching for Yi Qing Luo's whereabouts. His heart trembled fiercely for a few times. If Yi Qing Luo's ability was above him and Ghost King, she disappeared. They couldn't sense her presence at all. Perhaps this could be explained. But it was impossible that even Ghost King couldn't find Yi Qing Luo's whereabouts. The eyes of the palace master of the Netherworld Palace flashed. Could it be? Was this another escaping skill which Yi Qing Luo intentionally hid? There were always various kinds of miracles on that young lady. So this was another miracle which she created. But this illusionary tomb was specially created to deal with Dmo Xian and Yi Qing Luo. How could it possibly give Yi Qing Luo a chance to escape? Even if this was her miracle. And ultimately, she was unable to walk out of the illusionary tomb. As expected, Ghost King disappeared silently in front of Yi Qing Luo. In this half an incense's time, he wasn't able to find Yi Qing Luo's presence. His eyes turned sharp. Immediately he raised both his palms. His thick palms floated a layer of black smoke, twisting aura. He opened his palms, as though he was in mid-air, parting a layer of air. Immediately after, the entire graveyard started to shake violently. The graveyard cracked open like a spider web, densely packed and spreading out. The ground was filled with broken limbs, as they started to fall. The cracked ground looked like a bottomless abyss. Not long later, Ghost King's vision suddenly fixed on a certain direction. Following that, his figure swayed as he dashed towards that direction. Rumble, the surroundings were still filled with deafening explosions. That direction was the most secluded corner of the tomb. It was at least 200 meters away from the battlefield earlier. And the instance when Ghost King dashed over. In the darkness, a blazing red shadow with a boundless profound light dashed out like a bolt of lightning. The surging airwaves were like raging waves, constantly surging. "It's really here." The Spirit King snorted coldly, facing the incoming profound light. The strength chi in his body shook. The air waves rolled and dispersed the dark force that was coming at them. Boom! The woman who was charging forward was shaken by this wave of energy, causing her blood and chi to surge. Her delicate body suddenly flew back a few steps. When the red figure steadied himself, he took a closer look. Wasn't it Yi Qing Luo? Ghost King's malicious eyes were burning as he stared at Yi Qing Luo. That piercing gaze made one tremble in fear. In particular, there was a sinister smile on his face. "Little girl, you actually know teleportation." Ghost King was getting more and more interested in Yi Qing Luo. A person from the lower realm. Not only did he possess two of the vast water divine artifact. His mortal body could withstand the power of a divine artifact. He actually knew the teleportation secret technique. Teleportation secret technique, how nostalgic. He didn't expect that 10,000 years had passed. He actually saw the teleportation secret technique once again in the lower realm. "Who taught you the teleportation secret technique?" He stared at her, the smile in his eyes was even more horrifying. Yi Qing Luo's body was still a little stuffy from the earlier airwaves. Chapter 3371. Damn it. She thought that she could make use of this opportunity to leave this illusory territory. After all, she was in the trap zone set by the secluded palace. She had been suppressed too badly. If she left the tomb, she could at least summon her little companions to fight together. But she had not expected that she couldn't find the exit at all. Or perhaps, there was no exit at all. After that, she was discovered by Ghost King. And was seen through by Ghost King in one look. The footwork she displayed was the blink movement's secret art. That familiar reminiscing tone. Apparently, Ghost King had seen the blink movement's secret art before. Even if she wanted to deny it, Ghost King probably wouldn't believe her. Blink movement's secret art. The ultimate secret art used by the King of Thieves that year. Ghost King slowly walked towards Yi Qing Luo. Every step seemed to condense an invisible pressure. Yi Qing Luo pressed her chest. Earlier her chest was still in a state of relief from Ghost King's pressure. She saw him walking towards her again. That invisible pressure made her feel even more uncomfortable. That fishy sweetness in her throat seemed as though it was about to gush out. Yi Qing Luo pursed her lips tightly as her slender fingers clenched tightly. The hand holding the feather fan also tightened. She was on high alert as she slowly retreated. "Young lady, as long as you tell me. Where did you learn this blink movement's secret art from? I will let you leave this place, how about that?" Ghost King suddenly stopped when he was 5 steps away from Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo looked at him coldly. Listening to his words which sounded like a discussion. She couldn't help but burst out laughing. "Do you think I'm a 3-year-old kid? What right do you have to make me believe your words?" Ghost King's expression remained unchanged as he continued, "Young lady, you should be very clear that you have no capital to negotiate with me. Other than choosing to believe me, you have no other choice." Yi Qing Luo laughed angrily. "Why should I choose to believe you? Why should I choose to leave? My man has been placed into the darkness array by the palace lord of the secluded palace, and I will not leave until my man comes out." Ghost King. Who was the one who used the blink movement secret art to escape from the tomb? Saying in such a serious manner that she didn't want to leave. Did her skin need to be so thick? Yi Qing Luo expressed that she was the one who wanted to leave, and this was different from asking him to let her leave. Didn't she want her face? Did she have to leave just because he asked her to? Moreover, she didn't believe him. It was that simple. The Ghost King said, "Little girl, I am giving you a chance. Do you think that if I wanted to investigate, I wouldn't be able to find out your secrets?" Yi Qing Luo replied, "Oh, then go ahead and investigate." Ghost King. This girl, why didn't she play by the rules? Soft ones wouldn't work. The Ghost King decided to use force. His face darkened as he strode forward. He stood right in front of Yi Qing Luo. The hand which was condensed with profound energy went straight to Yi Qing Luo's neck. "Speak. Who on earth did you learn your teleportation technique from? Where is that person?" But, just as Ghost King's hand touched the skin of Yi Qing Luo's neck, he exerted his strength. His palm was actually holding a handful of air. Where was the girl's figure? The Ghost King's face darkened. Damn it. It was the teleportation secret art again. Yi Qing Luo, who had executed the teleportation secret art, was already far behind the palace lord of the secluded palace. Squatting down, the glower flame fan in her hand flipped and a dagger was hidden in the fan handle, pressing against the palace lord of the secluded palace's neck. The palace lord of the secluded palace who was unable to move. Damn it. Chapter 3372. Yi Qing Luo expressed that anyway her blink movement secret art had already been seen through. In this place, there wouldn't be a fourth person appearing. Then just use it casually. She could also use it to train her blink movement secret art, which she hadn't used for a long time. She pressed against the palace lord's neck and lifted him up. "I'll borrow you for a while." Palace lord of secluded darkness palace. Use it. What if he accidentally died? Yi Qing Luo replied, "Oh, don't worry about this. You still have some value, so I won't let you die." Palace lord of secluded darkness palace. So she didn't care about him if he had no value. Yi Qing Luo replied, "Oh, I won't. You've sent my Xian into the darkness array, how could I possibly not care about you?" Palace lord of secluded darkness palace. What was with that sinister tone? Forget it, let's not bother about him. No matter how much palace lord of secluded darkness palace was thinking, he was still taken as a hostage by Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo. Ghost King was infuriated. Yi Qing Luo displayed her blink movement secret art and instantly disappeared from his sight. She was simply making fun of him. His face was gloomy and his malicious eyes stared fiercely at Yi Qing Luo's direction. Yi Qing Luo had a hostage in her hand, so she wasn't worried that Ghost King would launch another attack. She stared at Ghost King as she slowly squinted her eyes. Ghost King was so persistent about how she learnt the blink movement secret art. Moreover, he said the same thing that Ghost Doctor said when he saw her executing the blink movement secret art. King of Thieves' ultimate secret art, blink movement secret art. Ghost Doctor's tone and expression back then was filled with nostalgia. And Ghost King was the same. Moreover, he seemed to have confirmed that she had learnt the blink movement secret art from the King of Thieves. But from Ghost King's tone, she didn't feel that Ghost King wanted to know the whereabouts of the King of Thieves and then hold a ceremony to acknowledge him. That tone sounded. It was obvious that they looked like enemies. This wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing was, she knew the blink movement secret art and it wasn't taught by the King of Thieves, but the Azure Dew Bracelet's Purgatory Tower's first floor reward. Of course, this was something that Yi Qing Luo would never reveal even if she was beaten to death. Let him go. Ghost King stared at the dagger in Yi Qing Luo's hand, his malicious eyes flickered slightly. Yi Qing Luo smiled, "You can't." Yi Qing Luo. The Ghost King's gloomy eyes darkened. "Let him go and tell me the whereabouts of the person who taught you the secret method of teleportation. Then I'll open the exit of the dark formation and let the venerable sovereign out." Yi Qing Luo's eyelashes fluttered. If the condition was to let her go, she might not be moved. But, the Ghost King said, to let Xian out, even if he deeply believed in Xian's strength. Yi Qing Luo was still worried about him. She thought about how he had set up a dark formation specifically to target her, and how he had fought against the formation in order to rush out to save her. She felt as if there were thin needles piercing her heart one by one. Therefore, the Ghost King's words moved her. Ghost King had been paying attention to Yi Qing Luo's expression. Seeing that her expression had loosened, his lips curled as he increased the temptation. Young lady, this dark formation is a trap specially set up by the secluded palace to target the venerable sovereign. No matter how strong the venerable sovereign is, he would still be injured in the formation. Or perhaps, because of you, he might even lose his life. Chapter 3373. Yi Qing Luo's eyes dimmed. Her long, curly eyelashes fluttered like butterfly wings. She raised her eyes and fixed her gaze on Ghost King. The expression on her face was cold and solemn. Her pair of charming eyes were covered with frost, filled with a biting cold intent. Why should I believe you? She finally compromised. The light in the eyes of the palace master of the Netherworld Palace, who was being restrained, dimmed. If possible, he hoped that Yi Qing Luo would not be tempted and use him as a hostage to continue to threaten Ghost King. But Ghost King used Dmo Xian as a bait. He was very clear. If Ghost King used her life as a bargaining chip, Yi Qing Luo would absolutely not be moved. But once it involved Dmo Xian, Yi Qing Luo chose to compromise. Ha! Ha ha ha! Ghost King laughed. That's the right choice. An unimportant person's whereabouts, in exchange for the safety of you and Dmo Xian, this pair of lovers, it's worth it. He stared at Yi Qing Luo. Hand him over to me. Tell me, where is the person who taught you the blink movement's secret art? Yi Qing Luo was indifferent. Open the entrance of the dark array. I want to see Xian safe and sound before I can be assured. Ghost King's face sunk. Young lady, you don't believe me, then why should I believe you? Yi Qing Luo sneered. Don't tell me you're afraid of my Xian. Worried that after Xian comes out, you won't be able to control the both of us. Ghost King's malicious eyes flashed a chilly glint. Young lady, goading me is useless. But don't mix me with that bunch of cowards. I, Ghost King, have never been afraid of anyone since I was born. Saying that, he moved his palms. Rolling profound chi was like a raging wave, rolling in his palms. Soon after, the sky above the entire graveyard was shrouded in pitch-black clouds. The yin chi around the cemetery started to distort. Just like the time when the dark array appeared. Black chi curled and in mid-air, it gradually formed a tiny crack. That crack slowly widened. Yi Qing Luo stared at the crack. Earlier, Xian was sucked in by this crack. Just as a fist-sized hole opened up in the crack, a figure suddenly appeared. A loud shout exploded in his ears. No! Don't let Venerable Sovereign come out. Otherwise, everything will be for naught. Yi Qing Luo's entire heart was placed on the crevice. Suddenly, the explosive roar was right next to his ears. It was so loud that her eardrums were buzzing. At this moment, the Palace Lord of Secluded Darkness Palace, whose neck was pressed by Yi Qing Luo, surged a powerful black chi in his eyes, as he attacked towards that crevice. The black aura instantly filled up the fist-sized crack. He blinked again. The crack disappeared in midair. The twisting black chi that pervaded the air also gradually dispersed. The Ghost King's movements were interrupted by this sudden power. The backlash caused him to feel a tightness in his chest, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. His face darkened as he glared at the palace master of Gloomy Palace. What are you doing? The Overlord must die in the dark array. If the Overlord comes out, none of us will be able to bring Yi Qing Luo back to the Palace of Darkness. Which means that the mission has failed. The Palace Lord of Gloomy Palace panted lightly as he fearlessly drew a wound on his neck with the dagger. I don't care what relationship you have with that blink movement secret method. But, this is a mission. I can't let you destroy everything. When Ghost King heard that, he couldn't help but laugh. Are you sure, you're doing this for the mission, or because of jealousy? The Palace Lord of Gloomy Palace was stunned. Chapter 3374. The Ghost King sneered, Palace Master, my cooperation with the Palace of Darkness is only verbal. I will help you only because I owe your master a favor. However, it doesn't mean that you can represent the Palace of Darkness and tell me what to do. The face of the Palace Master of the secluded Darkness Palace was covered by the black cloak, so his expression could not be seen clearly. But from his emotions, I can feel it. At this moment, his heart was in chaos and apprehension. He could not refute the Ghost King. His body was extremely tense. Even the dagger at his neck scratched his skin. It was as if he didn't feel any pain. His eyes were fixed in the direction of the Ghost King. The Ghost King's expression darkened. He raised his hand and wiped away the blood at the corner of his lips. If you continue to cause trouble, I won't want your life anymore. Yi Qing Luo felt the Palace Lord of Secluded Darkness Palace stiffen. Is this the rhythm of internal strife? Actually, in Yi Qing Luo's heart, because the Palace Lord of the Secluded Darkness Palace had destroyed the entrance of the dark array which was opened, she was rather furious. She narrowed her eyes and tightened her grip on his collar. Did you hear that? If you destroy the entrance to the dark array formation, you won't be a qualified hostage anymore. The Palace Master of the Netherworld Palace. Don't make it sound like he really wanted to be a hostage. Yi Qing Luo expressed that being her hostage was better than being tied to the ground. If she was not careful, she might even fall into the deep abyss which was split open by the Ghost King. That bottomless abyss. Falling down was much worse than being a hostage. So, being a hostage or something, at least I can still live for now, right? Palace Lord of Netherworld Palace. He still didn't want Dmo Xian to walk out of the dark array. He couldn't help but curse in his heart. She hoped that Dmo Xian had died in the dark array which was filled with traps. Never to appear in front of Yi Qing Luo ever again. Ghost King glanced coldly at the Palace Lord of Gloomy Palace and finally looked at Yi Qing Luo. The expression on his face was extremely cold. Little girl, you'd better tell me where that person is after this, or else I'll make you regret what you've done today. After a pause, he continued, even if Di Zun is by your side, I still have the ability to make you regret it. His words fell. He spread his palms open once again, and his majestic dark force covered the entire graveyard. The dark clouds rolled again. The black gas rose again. Yi Qing Luo clasped the Palace Lord's hand tightly. A trace of suspicion flashed across her half-closed eyes. What kind of enmity did this Ghost King have with the King of Thieves? He had a feeling. His obsession with the King of Thieves was very deep. They were so deep that they didn't hesitate to go against their cooperation with the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. He was so deep that he didn't hesitate to give up the 2 divine artifacts he wanted. But, just as the crack reappeared in mid-air, it slowly widened. The sky above the entire graveyard suddenly flashed with an extremely dazzling golden light. Immediately after, Yi Qing Luo's profound jade heart was like a raging inferno as it fiercely burned for a moment. In the pet space, the breaths of a few companions came. He could also vaguely sense an extremely familiar aura rapidly approaching. Yi Qing Luo's eyes suddenly lit up. This was Kitty. It was Kitty's aura. She had signed a life and death blood contract with Kitty. Within a certain distance, they could sense each other's presence. In other words, Kitty was nearby. How did she find her way here? This place was a trap set by the Palace of Darkness. It was the land of illusion. Yiqing Luo was extremely dazed. Chapter 3375. Yiqing Luo didn't know what that flash of golden light was. Ghost King and the Palace Lord of the secluded palace knew. This golden light represented, this illusory land had been broken by someone. Even the suppression on Yiqing Luo's psyche had been broken. Ghost King's brows creased tightly. How could this be possible? How could this be possible? How could there be anyone in this lowly lower realm who could break the illusory land he had created? And because of this shock, it made the cracks in the dark array which were gradually opening up close again. The next moment, the truth which Ghost King couldn't believe appeared in front of his eyes. Only to see the boundary of the graveyard. Out of nowhere, a slender black silhouette appeared, directly pouncing towards Yiqing Luo's direction. That petite and slender figure was like a kitten. Yiqing Luo was still holding the dagger which had slipped out from the glower flame fan and holding onto a hostage. Seeing the figure pouncing over, she didn't even hesitate. She directly threw off the hostage and kept the glower flame fan. Opening her arms, she hugged that figure into her arms. Sister. A sweet little voice with a kitten's coquettish tone. The girl in Yiqing Luo's arms rubbed her head fiercely in her arms. The two black ears on her head popped out. The black tail swayed excitedly. Yiqing Luo hugged the girl in her arms and gently rubbed her little head. Indeed, Kitty was here. But to be able to break this illusory land and destroy the array which was suppressing her psyche, it shouldn't be done by Kitty Lee. Where there was Kitty Lee, there would be Zoe Mo. Where there was Zoe Mo, there would be Ghost Martial Artist. So, Ghost Martial Artist was here. You are. Ghost King looked at this cute girl in astonishment. When his vision was fixed on the ears on Kitty Lee's head and that tail which was wagging excitedly, his expression changed. Beast human race. How could there be beast humans in Nirvana realm? You're the one who locked Kitty's beloved sister in this damned place and bullied her. Kitty Lee, who heard the voice, suddenly popped out from Yiqing Luo's arms and stared fiercely at Ghost King. His hair stood on end. It even showed its sharp teeth. Ghost King stared at Kitty Lee's teeth, then at Kitty Lee's hands, which had transformed into cat claws. He was extremely shocked. You're a beast man, how did you come to the lower realm? None of your business. Kitty Lee's sensitive nose detected the blood stench on Yiqing Luo and immediately her pair of quick-witted eyes turned into a whirlpool, deep and serene. Her sweet voice inexplicably revealed a bit of coldness. How dare you hurt Kitty's sister? Kitty will pay with your life. With that, she suddenly turned to the other side of the graveyard and shouted, Zoe Mo. Come out, Kitty. The Ghost King's expression became increasingly sinister. He felt, barging into the place he had transformed into. It wasn't just a single beast man, there were others. Moreover, there were many of them. The majestic aura was not something that a lower realm like the Nirvana realm could possess. Oh no, the hostage palace mistress of secluded palace heard Kitty Lee's call and her tone turned flustered. It's them, they're here. Yiqing Luo's helpers are here. Helpers? Ghost King frowned. What helpers? What's going on? Palace mistress of secluded palace didn't answer him. There was no need to answer. Chapter 3376. At the edge of the cemetery, a formless energy was projected over. The golden light flickered. In the haze, a few figures appeared indistinctly. Following that, those few figures got nearer. The one walking at the front was a young man dressed in white. Following closely behind him was the cold-faced Gui Wu. The white-robed young man's speed was extremely fast as he dashed in front of Yiqing Luo. But that pair of evil phoenix eyes was looking at Kitty Lee in Yiqing Luo's arms as he smiled evilly. "Little wild cat, who bullied you? I will take revenge for you." Kitty Lee rolled her eyes at Zhou Mo and stared at Ghost King. "It's that ugly freak who hurt my sister. Overlord brother-in-law is gone too. Help me teach that ugly freak a lesson." Zhou Mo smiled. "If I help you teach that ugly freak a lesson, how does little wild cat intend to reward me?" Kitty Lee's eyes widened in an adorable manner before her cheeks flushed red. "You, how can you? Kitty ignore you in front of my sister?" Obviously, this reward was absolutely not an ordinary reward. Moreover, it seemed that this kind of reward happened frequently. Yiqing Luo lowered her eyes as she looked at the blushing Kitty Lee in her arms and couldn't help but laugh. Looked like the days when she was not by Kitty Lee's side. This pair of lovers was living a life of public display of affection every single day. Zhou Mo was obviously proficient in teasing Kitty Lee, seeing Kitty Lee's blushing cheeks. His lips curled as he smiled evilly. "Little wild cat, I didn't say what the reward is, have you? Thought wrongly. You." Kitty Lee flew into a rage out of embarrassment as she squeezed out from Yiqing Luo's arms and raised her fist as she threw a punch towards Zhou Mo's face. Zhou Mo raised his hand as his large palm held Kitty Lee's little hand. Following that, he used a little force. Kitty Lee was held in his arms. Kitty Lee harumphed hard but didn't struggle. Then Zhou Mo shot an extremely complacent gaze towards Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo. So young Master Mo had treated her as his love rival. All right. She indeed looked like young Master Mo's love rival. But both of you, can't you wait till the crisis is over before showing your love? The current style was obviously not right. Kitty Lee also realized that the location wasn't right. When he came back to his senses, he punched Zhou Mo's chest again. "Hurry up and teach that ugly guy who bullied my sister a lesson." However, Zhou Mo didn't let go. His curved phoenix eyes flickered with a profound light. He chuckled. "Don't worry, I don't have to do anything. Someone else will deal with him." Yiqing Luo's slender brows rose when she heard that. Young Master Mo meant, the ghost warrior will deal with the ghost king. Her line of sight shifted from the two of them, to the ghost martial artist. Only then did he realize. The ghost martial artist, who had always been calm and indifferent and could not cause any ripples after eating the ancient martial artists, was now staring at the ghost king. On that young face, a solemn and dignified expression that didn't match his face appeared. At this moment, the Ghost King's line of sight was fixed on Gue Wu's body. His sinister eyes were dark and treacherous. His expression was solemn, as if he was facing a great enemy. Everyone could see that. These two people, they definitely knew each other. As expected. Just as the two of them stared at each other for about half an incense's time, they heard the two of them calling out at the same time. Gue Wu. Ghost King. They called out each other's name. Only their tone was totally different. Chapter 3377. Gue Wu frowned. "Why are you here? You can be in the lower realm, why can't I?" Ghost King asked back. Gue Wu remained silent for a while, his brows knitted even tighter. "You shouldn't be here." Ghost King laughed. "Why? You can be in the lower realm, why can't I be?" His voice paused, he seemed to have thought of something, the hostility in his eyes intensified. "That person, is he with you? Where is he?" Gue Wu stared at his slightly crazed face for a long time. Then, he surveyed his surroundings. Finally it landed on the palace lord of Nether Palace. Gue Wu's eyebrows were tightly knitted together, clearly in a displeased mood. "You and the Netherworld Palace are involved." I'm asking you, where is that person? Ghost King suddenly roared. The surrounding air also dispersed a burst of intense profound wave. He leapt up and pounced towards Gui Wu. Master Gui Wu. Yi Qing Luo was shocked and was about to rush forward. Ghost King was someone from the upper realm. His strength was unfathomable, so powerful that even she who had fused the power of two divine weapons was not able to contend against him. Although Master Gui Wu's strength was also unfathomable. He was also an old acquaintance of Ghost King. But this sudden attack. Yi Qing Luo was worried that Ghost King would be sneak attacked. Just as she moved, her shoulder was held down by someone. A strong force pulled her back. Yi Qing Luo turned her head and saw Zhou Mo, who was hugging Kitty Li, looking at her sloppily. Don't worry, that person is not Awu's opponent. Not Ghost King's opponent. Such a powerful person, actually, was not Ghost King's opponent. That Ghost King. How powerful was he? But you. Zhou Mo tilted his head and stared at her. Does the Overlord know that you are wasting your body like this? Yi Qing Luo knew that he was referring to her, the matter of fusing the power of two divine weapons. She pursed her lips. I'm fine. That's because you're lucky, but it doesn't mean that you can be so lucky every time. Zhou Mo no longer looked at her. If you don't know how to take care of your body, you shouldn't have contracted with Kitty Li. Yi Qing Luo looked down. When Kitty Li heard this, she got angry and puffed up her cheeks. Hey! What are you talking about? It's a contract with Big Sister, it's decided by Kitty. Zhou Mo hugged Kitty Li tightly as he glanced sideways at Yi Qing Luo. He was smiling on the surface, but his tone was cold. Do you see that? How important are you to the little wild cat? Not only little wild cat, but many people around you are also worried about you. Before you ruin your body, please think about the people who are worried about you and care about you. Kitty Li's struggling movements paused slightly. Yi Qing Luo's drooping head slowly lifted up. She licked her lips, which were a little dry. I know, but I'm not acting on impulse. I want to become stronger, to be able to protect those who worry about me and care about me. You should know that success and risk always coexist, but I believe that I will succeed. Zhou Mo looked at the young girl in front of him. Her clear eyes were filled with determination. A faint light flashed across his deep almond-shaped eyes. He said nothing more. But his gaze returned back to that side, to the two people who were entangled. The exchange of blows between experts was really different. Every movement. That was a fatal killing intent. Yi Qing Luo looked at the two people who were entangled. She could deeply see, earlier Ghost King in her. It was totally a small fight. Chapter 3378. But she wasn't immersed in disappointment. She forcefully closed her eyes, and her slender fingers clenched tightly. She silently swore in her heart. She must work hard to make herself stronger. Not only to walk side by side with Ah Xian, to look at the blooming flowers, but also to make the people around her feel assured. Qing Luo! Qing Luo! There were a few excited shouts in his ears. Yi Qing Luo looked over. She saw a few figures walking over from the side of the graveyard. A row of 6 people, neat and tidy, dressed in the same series of black and white attire. On their chests, there were cherry blossom totems, embroidered with the word, the world. Yi Qing Luo's pupils contracted. The corners of her lips unknowingly curled into an arc. Xiao Yi, Jin Zi, Ah Zhan, everyone, you're all here. Yes. It was the World Mercenary Group's everyone. Yan Xiao Yi and Tong Zi Qing ran up and hugged the young lady. We had just rushed over to East Continent and heard from the East Continent monarch that you might have been kidnapped by the people from secluded palace. Do you know that we were almost scared to death? Although we know you have the Overlord by your side, but God Thief said that he sensed a strong energy fluctuation, so we rushed over with Master Gui Wu and the others. God Thief is here too. Yi Qing Luo frowned as her vision shot towards the two people who were fighting in the sky. That's right, not only God Thief, even the world group and various powerhouses from various continents have all rushed over. Yen Xiao Yi said. Yi Qing Luo's brows rose. One secluded palace had united the 4 continents which had nothing to do with each other for the past 100 years. Amen. This was considered as the only merit that secluded palace had done in Nirvana realm. This time, we not only want to force secluded palace out of Nirvana realm, we also want to report to the upper realm. We don't believe that the people from the upper realm really don't know anything about such a huge matter happening in Nirvana realm. Speaking of this, Yen Xiaoyi's tone was obviously filled with anger towards some matters in the upper realm. She more or less understood a little from Qiao Jin. Because of this, she felt extremely disgraceful towards the upper realm's actions of watching without lifting a finger, since they allowed the people of their plane to bully them in the lower realm. He could only watch helplessly as the lower realm fell into destruction. In that case, what right did they have to call them people from a lower plane of existence from a higher plane of existence? What right did they have to call them trash? What right did the people of the upper realm have to be respected by the people of the lower realm? Where's the Overlord? Long Yunzhan, who had been silently staring at Yi Qing Luo, suddenly opened his mouth. That pair of azure blue eyes contained an indiscernible complex emotion. Only then did they realize what was going on. That's right, why isn't the Overlord by your side? Yi Qing Luo's eyes sunk slightly. He, because of me, was sent by the Palace Lord of Secluded Darkness Palace, into the dark array which was specially set up for him, until now. He still hasn't come out. Everyone's expression changed. Seeing Yi Qing Luo's face turning pale, Yen Xiaoyi immediately hugged her arm and consoled her. The Overlord is so incredible, he will absolutely be fine. Since it's a formation targeted at the Overlord, it will definitely take him some time to break it. Don't worry, the Overlord is the most powerful person in the world. Yi Qing Luo forcefully pulled the corners of her lips as she revealed a faint smile. Chapter 3379. I'm fine. What answered her was the same indifferent tone. Yi Qing Luo expressed that she missed it very much. Tong Zi Qing pulled Miao Yi over. It's all thanks to Yi that class monitor could be saved. Now that Yi has joined our The World group, we're all a family. Miao Yi smiled. Sister Luo saved me and the Miao Gu clan. This is what I should do. Yi Qing Luo rubbed her head as she replied sincerely, no matter what, I really thank you. That's right, Qing Luo, earlier you mentioned Palace Lord of Secluded Palace. Mo Han Shang leaned his head over and pointed to the 2 remnant figures in the sky. That person who is fighting with Master Gui Wu is the Palace Lord of the Secluded Palace. He's actually on par with Master Gui Wu. He is the external helper of the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. His strength is indeed very strong. As Yi Qing Luo was saying that, she took a look at Zhou Mo's direction. However, Zhou Mo still had no intention of intervening in this battle. Not sure what was going on, Yi Qing Luo shook her head. We can't help, let's take a look at Master Gui Wu's condition first. The battlefield and the horizon was getting more and more intense. They exchanged blows. The entire sky above the graveyard was constantly shaking like waves of air, rippling wave after wave. Their speed and attacks were fast and ruthless. Yi Qing Luo, who was still fused with the power of the divine weapon, couldn't see clearly the moves between the 2 of them. 2 figures appeared from time to time, and then there were a few loud explosions in the air. Then, the 2 figures disappeared again. The next time he appeared, another series of bangs rang out. He disappeared and reappeared. And so on. There were also many rays of light shooting in all directions. Indeed, no one could intervene in the fight between the two of them. However, as the two of them fought for a long time, their attacks became more and more impatient and ferocious. The Xian radiance that shot out in all directions also shot out uncontrollably. Yiqing Luo and the rest stood below, and there were several times when they were almost accidentally injured. He was caught in the middle of a battle between experts. It wasn't just about how they fought. He also had to be careful to avoid the power that they shot out in all directions. Just then, the two people fighting in the sky fiercely collided their palms. Rumble. The two palm winds collided, bringing along a majestic dark force. For a time, the air in the graveyard was filled with a suffocating pressure. Endless profound waves overflowed from the profound energy of the two people fighting. Be careful. Yiqing Luo's expression congealed. As for the overflowing profound qi, there was no problem for her to dodge. However, if Tong Ziqing and the others were hit by this qi, they would definitely die. Even if he didn't die, he would be crippled. She moved her feet and rushed in front of everyone. Shortly after, he swiftly unfurled his glowing flame fan and his profound qi surged, turning into a profound barrier that enveloped the few people behind him. Qing Luo, be careful. While Yiqing Luo was protecting the few people behind her with the barrier. But he had neglected to protect himself. Seeing those overflowing profound qi, splashing onto Yiqing Luo's body, the people inside the barrier all exclaimed. Yiqing Luo. Beside him, the hoarse and panicked voice of the palace master of Netherworld Palace could be heard. Then, she felt another aura rapidly approaching her. However, in the next instant, Yiqing Luo only felt her waist tightening. Her entire petite body was locked tightly in a broad embrace. The elegant sandalwood scent filled her nose. It easily soothed all the restlessness and uneasiness in her heart. Chapter 3380. The long arm around her waist tightened slightly. A powerful energy congealed into a barrier, replacing the barrier which she had created. Yiqing Luo's profound qi dispersed. She raised her head and met with that pair of deep sea-like peach blossom eyes which seemed to gather the stars. That pupils were filled with her reflection. Yiqing Luo's arms circled around his neck. Xian. You're all right. You're all right. Dmo Xian's eyes drooped as he lowered his head and planted a gentle kiss on her forehead. Amen, I'm all right. I'm back, don't worry. Yiqing Luo buried her head in his arms, deeply inhaling the reassuring scent from him. Feeling his warmth. Only then did she ascertain that he was really safe and sound and had returned to her side. And now, she buried her head in Dmo Xian's arms. So she didn't see it. When the man gently caressed her back, she raised her head slightly as she shot a glance outside the barrier, at that man who maintained his outstretched arm and stood stiffly on the original spot, covered in a black robe. Dmo Xian provocatively curled his thin lips as his eyes turned chilly. That gaze seemed to be ridiculing him, trying to show your presence in front of this lord's woman. You're still too tender. The palace lord naturally didn't miss Dmo Xian's provocative gaze. His tensed-up body became more and more taut as he started to tremble slightly. He was angry and annoyed. But he had nowhere to vent it out. Earlier, he was obviously the one to save Yiqing Luo first. But he was intercepted by Dmo Xian, who appeared out of thin air. Looking at Dmo Xian's provocative gaze, the palace lord's stiffened hand slowly drooped down. On his wrist, there was an obvious blood stain which was left behind from struggling against the ropes. This scene. Yiqing Luo didn't see it. But the people in the world group who were protected could see it clearly. Especially when they saw the provocative gaze which the overlord shot out. They were all stunned all right. When had the overlord become so childish? Yan Xiaoyi was just about to open her mouth to tell Yiqing Luo about this matter. She had just opened her mouth. A cold glint flashed over Yan Xiaoyi, who was swept by the overlord. How could he dare to open his mouth? Yiqing Luo, who totally didn't know anything, after she calmed down, she hugged Dmo Xian's waist and raised her head to look at him. The Palace Lord of Seclusion Palace said that the Dark Array was specially set up to deal with you. You should be alright, right? Just as he finished asking this question, Yiqing Luo felt that her waist had turned stiff. Following that, she heard Dmo Xian chuckling lightly. It's nothing, that little trick of theirs doesn't matter, I only spent some time to find the exit of the array. Yiqing Luo expressed that his body's reflex reaction wasn't that simple. Dmo Xian remained silent. Could he tell Yiqing Luo? In that dark array, all the checkpoints of the array were all transformed into her, Yiqing Luo's appearance. And he knew it was fake. But looking at that face, he couldn't bring himself to do it. If his Lil Luo found out, he was afraid that he would not be able to get over this joke. Dmo Xian expressed that it was better to keep it a secret. Hence, Dmo Xian increased the strength of his arms as he hugged her tightly. He lowered his head and laughed softly beside her ear. I'm able to break the array. It's all thanks to Lil Luo's help, otherwise, I might still be trapped inside. My help? Yiqing Luo didn't understand. Chapter 3381. Yiqing Luo understood. It was her deal with the Ghost King. Let the Ghost King open the entrance to the Dark Formation. Although the entrance was destroyed by the Palace Master of the Netherworld Palace. However, at the moment when the entrance was opened, it still gave Dmo Xian a chance to break the array. In that case, he had to thank the Palace Master of the Netherworld Palace for stopping the entrance from opening. At the very least, this was the result. Xian returned to her side safely. Her deal with the Ghost King could not be considered a success, so there was no need for her to discuss the origin of her teleportation technique. Otherwise, he would have to rack his brains to come up with the whereabouts of the King of Thieves. Now, he had saved himself some trouble. How wonderful! Xian, do you know where did that Ghost King come from? Yiqing Luo turned her head away, avoiding Dmo Xian's tender kiss, as she changed the topic. Dmo Xian smiled. Wait till you reach the upper realm, you will know. Yiqing Luo gave him a stare and snorted. On the surface, he seemed to be throwing a tantrum. But in his heart, he understood. Dmo Xian's refusal to say anything was for her own good. In the future, when he grew a little stronger, he would naturally understand. The battle in the land of illusion did not last long. Because, according to Yan Xiaoyi and the rest, that was, secluded Darkness Palace took the opportunity when Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian were trapped in this illusionary land. Taking advantage of the situation, they once again launched an offensive to invade the East Wave continent. The attack this time was obviously different from the previous battle. The Palace of Darkness didn't seem to be affected by the defeat at all. Whether it was in terms of numbers or strength, they were as ferocious as wild beasts. More importantly, over at Gloomy Palace, they could even control demonic beasts to fight for them. But the East Wave continent was different. East Water continent had just experienced a huge battle, and although they relied on Yiqing Luo and the others to obtain victory, however, they had also sacrificed a lot of profound practitioners, wealth, and resources. You haven't even had time to catch your breath. A great battle was about to break out. How could the East Wave continent compare to those monsters from Netherworld Palace? This sudden attack, adding on to the fact that Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian weren't in the East continent, The East Wave's sovereign was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. However, perhaps the East Billow continent was not fated to die. Just as the Netherworld Palace was about to succeed and swallow the entire East continent, when the World Group had rushed over from the West continent, they had also brought along the representatives of the various powerhouses from the other two continents as they charged over valiantly. Only then did he manage to stabilize the situation. Even though the East Wave monarch really hoped that the group of young heroes in the World Group would be able to protect the East Wave continent. But he still told the World Group about his guess that Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian might have been schemed and kidnapped by the Palace of Darkness. Hence, after confirming Yiqing Luo's position, Yan Shao Yi and the others went to save Yiqing Luo first. As for the rest, they would stay on the East Wave continent and fight against the Nether Palace. Therefore, the battle between the two experts did not last too long. After the two of them exchanged a palm strike, Ghost King looked at Yiqing Luo as his gaze turned chilly. "I will come back to look for you." Then, he slipped away. Gue Wu did not chase after him. He retracted his profound energy and walked over with a calm expression. He had no intention of explaining the Ghost King. Yiqing Luo's long eyelashes fluttered. "Come back for her." "Look for her for what?" "To inquire about the origin of the Blink Movement's secret art." Why was it that Ghost King was so persistent towards the Blink Movement's secret art? Just as she was deep in thoughts, her cheeks suddenly hurt. Chapter 3382. Yiqing Luo. Jealous over this? My Xian is incredible. Yiqing Luo's lips twitched. Oh, perhaps he's back to seek revenge for today. Dmo Xian pinched her face again. Yiqing Luo changed the topic again. Let's leave this place first and see what the Palace of Darkness is trying to do. A group of people walked out of the tomb. This time, Yiqing Luo walked out of the tomb without any obstruction. The illusionary land also slowly dissipated into the air following Ghost King's departure. Yiqing Luo discovered that this was an extremely ordinary barren mountain, whereas the surroundings were scattered with corpses. Corpses which were all dressed in Palace of Darkness uniform. This place was indeed Palace of Darkness's trap. Luckily, everyone in the World Group had rushed over in time. After leaving the barren mountain, Yiqing Luo realized that what Yan Shao Yi said about the great battle which East Continent had no way to resist was absolutely not an exaggeration at all. Now, even with the help of various powerhouses from various continents, they were unable to change the current situation. Because Yiqing Luo saw the sky above Jade Dome City as it was an oppressive darkness. Faintly, lightning flashed and thunder roared. The most shocking thing was, in the sky, a huge black hole appeared. That black hole was at least half the size of Jade Dome City. From that black hole, groups after groups of dead corpse puppets kept walking out. They were all defective goods. But there were too many of them. Wave after wave. And it was still increasing continuously. No wonder. Even if the four continents joined forces, they still wouldn't be able to deal with it. After all, the other party was a monster, a tireless monster. And they were human. In front of this increasing number of monsters which could not be killed at all, they would eventually deplete their profound energy, deplete their energy and deplete their stamina. Looking at the huge black hole in the sky, Yan Shao Yi and the others were stunned. What's going on? Before we went to look for you, we didn't see this black hole at all. Yiqing Luo's expression turned ugly as her slender brows furrowed as she looked at the black hole in the sky, sizing it up for some time. She pursed her lips. Let's go back to the palace first. On the way back, Yiqing Luo tugged at Dmo Xian's sleeve and asked in a low voice, "Ah Xian, that black hole should be a large-scale teleportation array secret art. Palace of Darkness is so high profile, obviously they're not afraid of attracting the attention of the upper realm or the balanced historian. Which means to say, Palace of Darkness is already fully prepared. Dmo Xian's expression was solemn. Qing Lu is still active in the upper realm, she will find out the person behind the Palace of Secluded Darkness. Yi Qing Luo was slightly stunned as she recalled that earlier, after Ghost King disappeared, the Palace Lord of Secluded Darkness Palace had disappeared along with the Land of Illusion. You know that the Palace Master of the Secluded Darkness Palace isn't the mastermind. At most, he can only be regarded as a chess piece. Mentioning the Palace Lord of the Secluded Palace, Dmo Xian's tone was filled with some disdain, but he can become the Palace Lord of the Secluded Palace on the surface. That means that his relationship with the person behind the scenes is not shallow. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased. I somehow feel that the Misty Palace Lord seems to know me. There's a familiar feeling. Before he could finish, her chin was propped up by the man. She raised her eyes and met with the man's alluring peach blossom eyes. His eyes were sparkling and extremely charming. No matter if you're familiar or not, he's not someone you need to know, so you're not allowed to think about him. Alright, handsome man trap. She admitted it. When the group of people rushed to the palace. Chapter 3383. On seeing Yi Qing Luo, East Wave Monarch went up to them in delight. Overlord, Madam Emperor, are you both alright? Yi Qing Luo shook her head. How's the battle situation now? The East Wave Sovereign sighed and shook his head. This time, it's obvious that their combat power is completely different from last time. It could be said that the battle we won last time was just a warm-up before the next battle. The Palace of Gloomy Shadows' goal might be to test the East Water Continent's strength first because they know that we've invited you and Dizun as reinforcements. But I'm more inclined to think that Secluded Darkness Palace's move is to first heavily injure East Continent's vitality, then invade East Continent in one go. Yi Qing Luo nodded her head. With the way the Palace of Gloomy Darkness was, she was also leaning towards the latter. Then now, the powerhouses and cultivators from the 4 continents have all joined the battle line. Over on the side of Secluded Darkness Palace. Are they still pursuing them relentlessly? Yi Qing Luo continued asking. The East Wave Monarch's face was full of worry. Madam, you saw it too. I don't know how the black hole above Jade Sky City came about. There are so many monsters, there's nothing we can do. Yi Qing Luo pursed her lips tightly as she looked at Dmo Xian beside her. After exchanging glances with him, Yi Qing Luo held the glower flame fan in her hand tightly. I'll go over to take a look at the situation first. We must win this battle. Otherwise, not only will the East Continent be destroyed, I'm afraid the entire Nirvana realm will suffer. Perhaps it was because of this reason. Only then would the 4 continents choose to unite. The East Wave Sovereign's eyes were filled with hope. I'll leave everything to you, heroes. Yi Qing Luo, Dmo Xian and the rest swiftly arrived at the battlefield. In other words, it was the periphery of the main city of the Jade Dome sect. In the surroundings, the profound practitioners from the various great forces of the various continents looked warily at the black hole in the sky. He was also guarding against sneak attacks from the Dark Abyss Palace. The entire battlefield was in chaos. When he saw Yi Qing Luo and Dmo Xian's figures, everyone recognized him at first glance. The World Group's brothers rushed over anxiously. Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo nodded towards them and immediately raised her head to look at the black hole. When did it appear? That black hole was surging with a frightening evil aura. Groups after groups of undead puppets came one after another. Ni Rupin answered with a pale face, about 10 minutes ago. Ah Xian, let's go take a look first and see if we can find a chance to seal that large-scale teleportation array. Yi Qing Luo glanced sideways at Dmo Xian. Dmo Xian nodded. Ni Ruopan pulled her arm. Madam Qing Luo, this is too dangerous. It's okay, Xian is here. Yiqing Luo smiled at Ni Ruo Pan. If we don't seal up the teleportation array, even if Xian and I join in and exterminate wave after wave of undead puppets, it would be of no use. Everyone in the world group exchanged glances with one another. In the end, he said worriedly, then you guys must be careful. Yiqing Luo gave them a reassuring smile. Following that, she held Dmo Xian's hand and both of them moved towards the horizon. The two of them were extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, he was already close to the black hole. The closer they got, Yiqing Luo could feel the gust of chilly wind blowing towards her. The closer they got, Yiqing Luo felt that this black hole was much bigger than what she had imagined. In addition, a large number of undead corpse puppets came out in full force. Chapter 3384. Perhaps he sensed Yiqing Luo's discomfort. Dmo Xian held her in his arms with one arm. The elegant sandalwood scent dispersed the smell of the dead corpses. Beside her ear was a man's deep and magnetic voice. How are you? Can you still hold on? Yiqing Luo shook her head in his arms. No matter, it's not the first time I'm in close contact with these puppets, don't worry. Dmo Xian didn't say a word. He only raised his hand and rubbed her head. No matter how ugly the dead corpses in front of her were, no matter how dangerous the surroundings were, it was impossible for them to survive. Yiqing Luo didn't have any other feelings. Her heart was filled with sweetness. As for this official battle with the Palace of Darkness, it was a battle between the Palace of Darkness and Palace of Darkness. And strangely, she felt extremely confident. Perhaps it was because he was by her side. So she could act according to her own thoughts without any worries. Then she could fearlessly walk on the path of the strong. She raised her head from Dmo Xian's arms and looked at the black mass of dead corpses. Yiqing Luo no longer had that disgusting feeling from before. Her mind had regained its original clarity. She immediately carried out the fastest and strictest observation on the surrounding environment and the battlefield. Her vision swept past the battlefield. At the same time, her mind was searching for ways to deal with it. Suddenly, her gaze fixed on an extremely inconspicuous corner outside Jade Dome Sect City. Outside the city, there were 3 circles of Palace of Darkness disciples surrounding it, as well as numerous magical beasts and flying beasts howling. Especially now, the appearance of the large-scale teleportation array gave Palace of Darkness the upper hand. At this moment, the Palace of Darkness disciples were excitedly cheering and waving their arms. But there was only that inconspicuous corner. The indistinct 3 figures weren't like the Palace of Darkness disciples, displaying an extremely excited feeling. But that kind of feeling as though they were isolated from this world, as though everything had nothing to do with them. Those 3 figures. 2 of them were extremely tall, and in the middle stood a slightly shorter person. He was dressed in Palace of Darkness uniform. Just one look and Yiqing Luo felt that those 3 people looked familiar. Xian, look over there. Yiqing Luo tugged at Dmo Xian's sleeve and pointed to that corner. Dmo Xian took a look and his voice sank slightly. The energy from the transmission array is coming from their side. Their eyes met. Then they nodded at each other. With a leap, the 2 of them rushed towards the corner one after the other. The 2 of them were extremely fast. Moreover, it was all unexpected. Until he was close to the 3 people. The 3 of them didn't even have time to react. He could only feel 2 incomparably cold energies approaching him. The next moment, the short man in the middle was blocked by a red figure. The weapon in the girl's hand was pressed against the man's neck. As for the other 2, they were strangled by a large palm. Oh! The taller man struggled in disbelief. He could feel the power gripping his throat. It was so strong and violent that it felt like it was going to shatter his internal organs. Fear welled up from the bottom of his heart. How could he not be afraid? Both of them were being strangled by the purple-robed man with one hand. They couldn't even struggle free. It's, you guys. When Yiqing Luo got nearer, she recognized these three people's faces. The one whose glower flame fan was pressed against her throat was a lady. Yiqing Luo had seen her before, her name was Yunu. And the ones whose throats were being strangled by Dmo Xian were Yuhan and Yuji. Chapter 3385. 3 Nether of the Ghost Hand 5 Nether. Who would have thought that it would be them? 3 Nether could be said to be a core figure of the Palace of Gloom. However, if I remember correctly, Ghost Hand 5 Nether was not a member of the Gloomy Palace. Like Zhu Wuxin, he should be a partner of Gloomy Palace. Furthermore, compared to the Palace Master of the Nether Palace that he had met in the Land of Illusions, her actual power might be even greater. She speculated based on what Yuyin had told her. Above this Ghost Hand 5 Nether, there should be someone called Venerable. That Venerable one was the big boss behind the scenes of the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. He was also the big boss's partner. There was no way to know, Yiqing Luo. When Yunu saw the person who was threatening her life, she gritted her teeth and spat out 3 words. Under the black robe, that pair of malicious eyes stared coldly at Yiqing Luo. As though he couldn't wait to dismember Yiqing Luo into 1,000 pieces. Yiqing Luo's lips curled. Tisk, long time no see, Miss Yunu missed me so much. Yunu's eyes were filled with ruthlessness. Let go of me. It wasn't easy to catch you, how could I possibly let you go? Yiqing Luo grinned as she shook her head, the dagger which was pressed against her neck was pushed closer. Yuhan, who was clutched by the neck by Dmo Xian, and her legs were suspended in the air, her face flushed red as she struggled to spit out a word. Yi Qing Luo, you dare. Don't hurt her. Oh, you're really infatuated. Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she gave an evil smile. I'm someone who has never done a losing deal. Since you hope that I won't hurt your beloved ghost girl, then you have to use something to exchange for it. He was cold and angry, and because of the strength of his neck, he couldn't breathe. His feminine face had long since turned red, and he had lost his usual handsomeness. Hearing Yiqing Luo's shameless words, he became even angrier. Yiqing Luo expressed, she just liked it when others were annoyed by her but couldn't defeat her. Oh. Not satisfied. If she was not convinced, she could go and find a thigh that was even thicker than her thigh. Yiqing Luo's mouth was provoking 3 Nether's bottom line. His gaze floated to the sky above Jade Dome City. As expected. Because the 3 underworlds were being controlled. The huge black hole in the sky was gradually shrinking. The undead puppets were still coming out one after another. But as the hole shrank, the number of them decreased. In the blink of an eye, the black hole had already disappeared from the sky. Yiqing Luo retracted her vision and looked at Sen Yu, who was in front of her. These 3 people, sure enough, it was the person who created the large-scale teleportation circle. For the Palace of Darkness to entrust such an important matter to the 3 Nethers, who were only cooperating with them, from this, one could see the status of 3 Nether in the Palace of Tenebrous Gloom. From this, it could be seen how much Abyss Palace acknowledged 3 Nether's strength. However, although her and Dmo Xian's appearance had sealed the large-scale transmission. However, during this period of time, the undead corpse puppets that walked out had already become a black mass. They almost surrounded the entire Jade Dome City with 3 layers inside and 3 layers outside. There were at least 10,000 undead puppets. Not to mention, there were also thousands of semi-finished undead puppets. Even if Tang Beiyuan managed to forge a weapon that could deal with the undead puppets, it wouldn't be enough. It would be very taxing to deal with so many undead corpse puppets. Moreover, the weapons that were refined were not enough. Summon all these undead puppets back. Yiqing Luo threatened in a low voice. Chapter 3386. Yiqing Luo's face was calm. "Oh, since we can't turn the tables, then let's drag you to hell with us." As she spoke, her slender jade-like fingers moved slightly. The fan handle moved closer to Ghost Maiden's neck. The sharp blade cut through iron like mud. Just a slight touch. Blood started to ooze out along Ghost Maiden's neck. Yiqing Luo's lips curled into an evil smile as her tone was filled with ridicule. Your skin is well maintained, fair and glossy. Coupled with this seductive red, don't worry, it's especially beautiful." Saying that, she nodded her head hard, expressing her guarantee. Ghost Maiden's features were twisted from the pain. But she was tough and didn't make a sound. But Ghost Maiden's bones were tough. But someone would feel heartache. Yuhan's peripheral vision swept past that red smear on Ghost Maiden's neck, and his eyes seemed to be covered by this smear of red. He gritted his teeth as he roared angrily, "Yiqing Luo! You dare to hurt Ghost Maiden, I want your life." Yiqing Luo's face was calm as she turned to look at Yuhan and spoke calmly. "Didn't she say that we can't turn the tables? Then what do I not dare to hurt? At most, we'll die together." Following that, her eyes were filled with ridicule as she looked at Yuhan, whose face was flushed red. "You can't even save yourself and you want my life? You!" Yuhan was flustered. The more angry he was, the tighter his throat became. He continued to feel the breath of life leaving him. He opened his eyes wide as he struggled unwillingly. But where did he have any energy left? He wasn't willing to die. He couldn't bear to die. "So you three neither need to be clear of the situation. Now. I'm the one in control. You. If you want to live, or if you want to protect the people you want to protect, you can only listen to me obediently." Three Nether's body was extremely tense. But there was no way to refute this fact. Ghost Maiden couldn't even struggle free from Yiqing Luo. Not to mention, the other two were able to struggle free from the Overlord. "What on earth do you want?" Yuji, who had been silent for a long time, shouted coldly. Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she smiled. "You should be very clear what I want." "Impossible. We are only responsible for opening the entrance of the teleportation portal. We don't control the corpse puppets. So, we can't do what you want to do." Yiqing Luo's fingers moved again. "Oh, if you can't do it, then what's the use of keeping you?" Yuhan. Damn it. Threatening at the slightest disagreement. "Can't you come up with something new?" Yiqing Luo, since threats are useful, why must you use your brain to think of new tricks? Do you have nothing better to do? It's not impossible. Yuji's voice was still calm. After all, from the moment he was captured, he had not struggled at all. If he could preserve his strength, he would naturally not feel as uncomfortable as Yuhan. Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she looked at Yuji. "Tell me about it. Let me go, and I will take the corpse puppet away from the East Wave continent," Yuji said. He said I, not we. Yuhan and Yu naturally understood the deeper meaning of his words. Yuhan immediately shouted, "Yuji! What do you mean?" This roar. That tightness on his neck became even more unbearable. He wanted to cough but he couldn't. The hand which was strangling his neck. That strength seemed to know clearly what he could endure. It wouldn't let him be strangled to death. But it wouldn't let him feel better. Yuji was expressionless as he looked at Yiqing Luo. "With them as hostages in your hands, I will not escape by myself." At this moment, it wasn't only Yuhan who was angry. Chapter 3387. Yiqing Luo tilted her head as she looked at San Yu with a smile which didn't look like a smile. TSK, didn't Yuan say, did they, the ghost hands 5 never, grow up together? Even if there were collisions between missions. However, they were still brothers who had gone through life and death together. He was betrayed so easily. Wouldn't his conscience hurt? It really was a plastic brotherhood. Yiqing Luo squinted her long and narrow eyes as she looked at Yu Ji smilingly, raising up one finger and shaking it, but, I don't believe you. Yu Ji's expression finally had a slight change. He furrowed his brows and tried his best to remain calm. What do I have to do to convince you? No matter what, I won't believe it. Yiqing Luo replied decisively and smiled sweetly. A pair of curved, enchanting eyes seemed to be embellished with vast stars, dazzling and dazzling. However, no matter how dazzling it was, in the eyes of the 3 nether, it was a light that could take their lives. Yu Ji's expression instantly changed. Yiqing Luo laughed again. Rather than trusting you, I'd rather let him. Yiqing Luo pointed at Yuhan. Go give the order to let the corpse puppets leave, and Yu, be the hostages. She paused for a moment and lowered her eyes to look at the woman she had subdued. Of course, the most important thing is, Miss Yu will be the hostage. You. Yuhan's expression froze. She gritted her teeth. I'll be the hostage. Let Yu go. Yiqing Luo turned her head over and blinked her eyes. Her eyes flickered, showing her innocence. No. I don't believe her either. The anger on Spectral Maiden's face grew even more. Yiqing Luo. Stop trying to drive a wedge between us. You are all meat on the chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered by me. Do I need to sow discord? Yiqing Luo's tone was filled with ridicule. I just don't believe in your characters. He let Yu Ji leave. Yu Ji would definitely disregard the lives of Yuhan and Yu, and directly let the undead puppets invade Jade Dome City. Let Nethergirl leave. That was even more impossible. Don't be fooled by Yu's love for Yuhan. But from Ghost's eyes, Yiqing Luo understood. Once the Nethergirl was rescued, it was impossible for her to fail her mission just to save Yuhan. Yuan had once said, every member of the Ghost Hands 5 Nether had their own ambitions. They all wanted to surpass each other and become highly regarded by the Martial Highness. Therefore, the only candidate was Yuhan. Because Yuhan's feelings for Yu were serious. Yuhan would never abandon Yu. On this point, Yiqing Luo was extremely certain. She curled her lips, and her long and narrow eyes flickered with a hint of evil. You don't have the right to choose, so, just answer me directly. Are you going to die, or are you going to take away the corpse puppets? Yuhan glanced at Yu. His pupils contracted when he saw Yu's fair neck soaked in blood. Yuhan gritted her teeth. Fine. I promise you. Take the undead corpse puppets away. Yiqing Luo nodded with a satisfied smile. That's more like it. Obedient babies can live longer. His tone was as if he was teasing his pet. Ah Xian. Yiqing Luo took a look at Dmo Xian. Dmo Xian loosened his grip. Her cold body fell to the ground. Totally defenseless, his body crashed onto the hard ground. He groaned a few times, as he panted heavily. That flushed red face looked as though he was going to stop breathing at any moment. Chapter 3388. Yiqing Luo's clear and melodious voice was extremely sweet, with a hint of a young lady's softness. But the words that came out of her mouth were extremely cold. Oh right, there's more. After one incense stick of time, if I don't see you retreating out of East Continent, I will continue to cut off a part of her body. Pausing for a moment, the dagger in her hand made a few strokes on Yunu's body, until all the parts on her body are cut off. I will wrap up her corpse, as a gift, and give it to you. You. Yi Qing Luo. Yuhan angrily rebuked. Cough, 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 cough. After the loud roar, the throat which had yet to recover, gave a series of hurried coughs. Yi Qing Luo tilted her head, as she gave an innocent smile. Let me remind you, now. The countdown starts. Yuhan clutched his neck, as he panted heavily, as he stared fiercely at Yi Qing Luo. The current him, where was the previous cold as ice prince's temperament? He struggled to climb up from the ground, as his body was on the verge of collapsing. How can I believe you, that after I bring away the corpse puppets, you will let Yunu go? You can only believe me. Yi Qing Luo replied with a smile. Yuhan clenched his fists. His face was filled with anger. You'd better not lie to me. If anything happens to Yunu, even if the heavens and earth are destroyed, I will drag you down with me. Yuhan gritted his teeth as he spat out a sentence, as he turned around and left. Yi Qing Luo clicked her tongue, as she teased, Ayaya, what a touching love destroying the heavens and earth, dragging me down with you. Ah Xian, I'm so scared. I'm here. Dmo Xian knew that Yi Qing Luo was intentionally teasing Yuhan, but he still played along, as he spoke his mind. He was here. He would not let anyone bully his Lil Luo, destroying the heavens and earth. Dragging Lil Luo down with him. He, Yuhan, was worthy. Dmo Xian's peerless face revealed a faint smile. That smile did not reach his eyes. It seemed as though he was mocking something. Sensing the man's unfriendly expression, Yi Qing Luo mentioned Yunu as she smiled and leaned towards Dmo Xian's side, leaning her head on his shoulder. Amen, with you around, I have nothing to fear. After Yuhan left, the surrounding disciples of the Abyss Palace looked at the two of them with a dumbfounded expression. Their faces were filled with vigilance as they gripped their weapons tightly. His eyes were filled with anger and murderous intent. However, no one dared to act rashly. Without any explanation, he rushed over and captured their king. They still had a hostage in their hands. How would they dare to go up? Everyone in the Nether Tenebrous Palace didn't know that the Yu family's backing was comparable to their palace master. Moreover, they were not under the control of their palace master. If he suffered even the slightest injury, if the palace master blamed them, what should they do? Furthermore, the ones who dashed into the crowd which was surrounded by the secluded palace's disciples and captured Sanyu were the Overlord and Yi Qing Luo. Even if the Overlord and Yi Qing Luo didn't have any hostages, they didn't dare to go up. Hence, they could only stare at each other, paying attention to what the Overlord and Yi Qing Luo were up to. Then, Di Zun released Yuhan. Then, Yuhan left with a face full of anger. What's going on? Had they reached an agreement on some deal? Just as the secluded palace's disciples were in a daze. Chapter 3389. Secluded Palace's Disciples. They were in an advantageous position now. There were so many corpse puppets around. The Overlord and Yi Qing Luo were trapped in their territory once again. Even if they couldn't hurt them, they could also hold them back and not let them join the battle. There was totally no need to retreat, right? But no matter how the secluded palace's disciples were howling in their hearts, they could only listen to the higher-ups' commands. The higher-ups said to retreat. They could only retreat obediently. Hence, outside Jade Dome City, the majestic scene of 3 levels and 3 levels outside slowly disappeared. Jade Dome City finally saw the radiance of sunlight again. The happiest ones were the various powerhouses cultivators who were guarding on top of the city walls. They thought that a great battle was about to begin. And it was a great battle that they might not be able to win. They had not expected, the enemy actually gave up. The various powerhouses' representatives' eyes were filled with stars, as though they were looking at the gods they worshipped, looking at the two big Buddhas who were surrounded by the secluded palace's disciples. They were indeed the overlord and the future madam. So intelligent. Capturing the ringleader first in order to capture the bandits was played to the fullest. Look! This was obviously a certain victory situation for the secluded palace. But because they had captured the three people from the secluded palace, the secluded palace could only choose to retreat obediently. Not long later, the corpse puppets had all retreated to a distance of 100 meters away from Jade Dome City. There were only thousands of secluded palace's disciples left who were surrounding Jade Dome City. They were still surrounding Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo. Looking at the corpse puppets retreating, their hearts were filled with apprehension. Should they continue to guard Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo, looking for a suitable opportunity to save the two madam youths? Or should they retreat together with the corpse puppets? Ha! I didn't expect that Yu Han, that idiot, really cared about you. After Yu Ji saw this scene, a deep glint circulated in his dark eyes. Yu Nu's eyes were filled with viciousness, and when she heard Yu Ji's voice, she stared at him angrily. Do you think everyone is as cold-blooded and heartless as you? I'm cold-blooded and heartless. Are you sure that if the person who left earlier was you, you would really abide by the conditions and let the corpse puppets retreat? Yu Ji shot a scornful glance at her. That gaze seemed to be mocking her. They were all whores, so why did they have to pretend to be pure? Dark Girl's expression changed and she turned her head away. Don't put me in the same category as you. The argument between the two. Yiqing Luo naturally heard everything. However, her thin brows did not relax because of the retreat of the corpse puppets. On the contrary, her eyebrows furrowed even more. No, something was wrong. Something was very wrong. Yu Palace of Darkness had really gone all out this time. Clearly, he had made up his mind to conquer the East Continent. It was impossible for him to give up so easily. How could it be? The evacuation went so smoothly, as expected. Yiqing Luo's intuition was right. In the next instant, a huge tornado descended from the sky. All of a sudden, the entire Jade Dome City was filled with sand and stones, the earth quaked and the mountains shook. The sky was also covered with dark clouds, forming a dense mass of darkness. From time to time, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled, crisscrossing each other. The retreating undead corpse puppets also stopped their retreat in the hurricane. Bang, bang, bang. A deafening explosion was heard. Following that, the ground started to collapse. Jade Dome City also started to collapse. Chapter 3390. Everyone, calm down. Calm down first. Let's see what His Majesty has to say. Some people tried their best to maintain order. The representatives of the major forces and the soldiers participating in this battle all had different thoughts in their minds. It was just that, he didn't have the time to express it. The ground of Jade Dome City cracked open, making it hard for everyone to even stand. Immediately afterward, the undead corpse puppets that had retreated 100 meters away actually began to surge towards them from all directions again. This unforeseen event. Even the disciples of the Dark Nether Palace were stunned. What was going on? Why was there another plot twist? Everyone immediately looked towards Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo. These two people were the backbone of their group. Everything depended on their attitude. As for Yiqing Luo, who was clasped tightly in Dmo Xian's arms, her expression was calm as her eyes were fixated on the direction where the hurricane came from. Dmo Xian's expression was the same. He was so calm, as if he had already expected this. It could be said that he had expected this, and it could be said that he had expected it. Because Yi Qing Luo was very clear on how big the ambition of secluded darkness palace was. In addition, there was the existence of this profound jade heart within her body. The palace of gloomy darkness would never give up this chance. After all, if the palace of gloomy darkness failed this time, there wouldn't be a third chance. Therefore, when things turned around, Yi Qing Luo remained calm. However, what made Yi Qing Luo curious was, he could ignore Yuhan's orders and forcefully order the undead corpse puppets to turn around and attack again. Who was the person who managed to snatch the authority to command the dead corpse puppets from Yuhan? From the looks of it, the person who came seemed to have a higher status than Sanyu in the Palace of Darkness. Could it be the true mastermind of the Dark Nether Palace? Yi Qing Luo's long and narrow eyes squinted in ridicule. A meaningful sneer flashed across his eyes. She lowered her eyes and curled her lips. It seems that someone in the Palace of Gloomy Shadows doesn't want you to live. The scene in front of him changed dramatically. Yu Ji and Yu Nu widened their eyes in disbelief. Now hearing Yi Qing Luo's words, both of their expressions changed slightly. If one did not look closely, he probably couldn't tell. Yi Qing Luo tilted her head. If Yuhan is unable to complete the deal between us, then I must abide by the deal between us. She raised the handle of the gourd flame fan. The dagger, stained with blood, shone brightly under the smoke and dust. Her smile became even more enchanting. Miss Yunu, which part of your body do you think I should start from? Dark Maiden's face turned pale with fright. You! How dare you! Yi Qing Luo, if you dare to touch me, Yuhan. And Secluded Palace will absolutely not let you off. Secluded Palace doesn't even want your lives, so why would they seek revenge for you? Yi Qing Luo had a "don't lie to me" expression. Yunu stared straight at the dagger in Yi Qing Luo's hand. Don't mess around. Do you know who our master is? If you dare to touch me, you'll be slapping our master's face. Chapter 3391. Yu Ji and Yunu's faces darkened. Yi Qing Luo. How dare you insult our venerable one? You're courting death. The respected revered, in Yi Qing Luo's mouth, was scolded as a sinister rat. How could Yunu and Yu Ji accept this? They struggled and angrily tried to save face for their master. But when the dagger in Yi Qing Luo's hand came close again, the Dark Maiden's body stiffened, and the indignant words she was about to say were stuck in her throat. Yi Qing Luo still tilted her head as she gave an evil smile. It's just the truth, why get angry? You should know that we women can't be easily angered. If we are easily angered, we will grow old and ugly quickly. Speaking of which, both the dark forces and the Palace of Gloomy Shadows have been targeting me for such a long time. And I haven't even seen that so-called venerable of yours. Don't tell me, he's just a mouse hiding in the dark and giving orders. Ghost Woman's expression darkened. But she was worried that Yi Qing Luo's hand would shake and accidentally cut her face with the dagger. Suppressing the anger in his heart, he did not dare to make a sound. Yu Ji pursed his lips tightly as he took a look at Dmo Xian beside him and then looked at the smiling Yi Qing Luo. His expression turned ugly as he opened his mouth. You are not qualified to meet the revered one. It's just an inferior realm, there's no need for the venerable one to step in. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows rose as she smiled again. Yes. What a pity, I'm afraid you won't be able to see if I'm qualified to see the little mouse you respect so much. She raised her head with a smile and looked at the tens of thousands of undead puppets charging back. Large groups of them surrounded them. The entire Jade Dome City was surrounded once again. Standing on the city wall of Jade Dome City, the smiles on the faces of the cultivators of the major forces were replaced with shock and disbelief. What was going on? Didn't these monsters retreat? Why did it suddenly rush back? Wait a minute, everyone shifted their gazes towards Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian's direction. In their hearts, all of them were anxious and uneasy. What should the Overlord and Madame D do when they are surrounded by the enemy's monsters? No matter how strong they were. Facing so many monsters and disciples of Dark Palace, he would also be at a disadvantage. However, everyone's worries didn't spread to Yiqing Luo. Her expression was still indifferent, and her brows were also calm. A pair of indifferent eyes quietly looked in the direction of the Palace of Darkness camp. Beside the young girl, the tall figure of the man blocked the young girl completely. His purple robe fluttered even though there was no wind. The powerful and terrifying profound light surged around the man's body like raging waves, stacking on top of one another. The Palace of Gloomy Darkness did not dare to act recklessly. The atmosphere was tense and the two sides were in a deadlock. A clear, girlish voice rang out, "Since the Palace of Darkness has sent reinforcements, why do you need to be secretive? Could it be? Your Excellency is the little mouse that I was talking about." The girl's voice was clear and sweet. His voice had almost reached the eardrums of everyone present. Then, a fiery red flame flashed in the sky. The girl carried a black-robed man and flew into the sky. Her figure was as light as a feather. Even though she was carrying a man, it didn't affect her movements at all. The young girl's figure froze in mid-air and just as she started to descend. Clang! Chapter 3392. In mid-air, the red glow was like a blazing flame. It continued to spread out in the sky. Every single floating phoenix feather glowed brilliantly, extremely dazzling. That red steadily supported the young lady's falling body. Immediately following that, in mid-air, it spun in mid-air, sweeping out a billowing splendor. Amidst the dazzling profound glow, everyone saw the red-robed young lady standing on that huge red bird's back. The surging profound energy was like tidal waves as it dispersed around the young lady's body. Her single arm was holding onto a petite figure dressed in a black robe. Her gorgeous face was filled with smiles. "Yuhan, one incense's time is up. Although you didn't keep to our agreement. But I'm an honest and trustworthy person, so I can't learn your thick skin." She raised her voice as she laughed lightly. Her voice was filled with helplessness. However, if the smile at the corner of the young girl's mouth had been restrained, perhaps this helplessness was more convincing. "How dare you? Yiqing Luo, how dare you?" Yuhan's figure leapt up from among those 10,000 corpses and puppets, appearing in front of Yiqing Luo. His expression was sinister as his deep cold eyes stared deadly at Yiqing Luo. "Yiqing Luo, let go of Yunu. I'll be your hostage." "Why do I need a hostage for?" Yiqing Luo waved her glower flame fan. That dagger which had slid out from the fan handle retracted and retracted at times. The dagger's edge flashed and retracted at times. She laughed lightly. "You're the one who violated our agreement first, so you should accept the punishment." I didn't." These words were almost squeezed out from the slits of his teeth. Yuhan's fists were clenched tightly as the veins on his forehead popped out. "I didn't regret at the last minute. But..." Saying this, Yuhan's voice paused. His fists clenched even tighter. His entire body's taut muscles could be seen clearly. Taking a deep breath, he stared at Yiqing Luo as he said word by word coldly, "The current situation, I can't control it." "Can't control it? What has this got to do with me? I only want results." The young lady's giggling laughter reverberated in the entire sky of Jade Dome City. The strong wind blew against the young lady's hair. Her hair was loose as her hair swayed under the sky full of raging flames. It was as if it was plated with a layer of red light. The alluring young lady had a wicked smile on her face. She was like a ghost in a blazing flame, very bewitching. If one ignored the movements of her hands. This was indeed an extremely beautiful painting of a beautiful woman. Yiqing Luo's slender white fingers pinched the fan handle and shook it. The dagger shone with a sinister light. She gestured at dark girl's face and ear and clicked her tongue. How vexing, where exactly should I start? Yiqing Luo. Yuhan was infuriated as she howled hysterically. Immediately after, his profound chi surged and with a leap, he pounced towards Yiqing Luo's direction. "Ayo, so scary," Yiqing Luo cried out exaggeratedly. The hand that was pressed against dark girl's face trembled a little. "Ah!" Yunu screamed. Yuhan, who was rushing over, suddenly stopped in her tracks after she let out a miserable shriek. His face was steely green. Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo blinked her eyes innocently as she smiled and shook her head. "Who asked you to scare me? I'm a person, my hand trembles easily when I'm afraid. When my hand trembles, I don't even know where this knife will cut." Chapter 3393. Yuhan clenched his fists so tightly that his fingernails had almost penetrated deep into his palm. The string in his mind that was stretched taut was forcibly suppressed by him. He took another deep breath and gritted his teeth as he spat out a few words. "Yiqing Luo, you're simply too much." Yiqing Luo's lips curled as she spoke in a light tone. "No choice. Who asked me to grab hold of your weakness? With a hostage in my hands, even if I bully you, what can you do to me? Or rather..." She paused and looked down at the man who looked like a god. She smiled and said, "You can also go and grab my weakness and use it to threaten me, right?" Yuhan. Damn it. If he was able to catch the overlord, would he still need to be here talking nonsense with Yiqing Luo? Yiqing Luo smiled as her vision shifted back to Yunu's face. "How about this, I'll start from her ears." Saying that, she moved the dagger towards Yunu's ears. "You dare!" Yuhan roared in rage as the profound energy on her rose rapidly. At the same time, another low shout suddenly rang out, "Stop!" "Hand!" These two words actually caused the surrounding air to tremble violently. That voice was extremely loud, like a copper bell, so thick that it could penetrate through everything in the world. Immediately following that, an even more shocking burst of profound energy, with a shocking speed, passed through the serene coldness and surged straight over. It was a strange, powerful, and majestic power. It made Yiqing Luo's expression change slightly. The glower flame fan which was pressed against Yunu's cheek swiftly retracted. "Catch!" The moment her words ended, Yiqing Luo directly threw Yunu and her hands towards the sky as though she was throwing rubbish. Following that, her figure swept upwards as she retreated backwards swiftly. Lil Luo, At the same time when Yiqing Luo made her fastest reaction, Dmo Xian's worried voice was heard from behind. She retreated a few steps and bumped into the man's chest. Her waist was locked tightly by Dmo Xian's arm. The familiar sandalwood fragrance seeped into her nose. Yiqing Luo felt much more at ease. She had not expected. She had been on guard in the direction of the secluded palace but neglected other places. Actually, on this battlefield, there was a third group of people. Just now, that voice of "stop" sounded somewhat familiar. However, he couldn't recall where he had heard it before. Yiqing Luo nestled in Dmo Xian's arms as she shot her vision towards Yunu who she had flung out earlier. In the instant that ghost girl was flung away, the terrifying murderous aura that had suddenly surged out suddenly disappeared. From this, it could be seen that the owner of that power had come for Yunu. As expected, She saw something in front of her. Ghost girl, who had been flung away, fell into someone's arms. That person was not Yuhan. Yuhan was still at least a dozen meters away from Ghost Girl. At this moment, he was stunned on the spot, his face filled with disbelief. It was as if he was scared silly. The person who was hugging Ghost Girl was wearing a black outfit and a black hat. A large black hat covered half of the man's face. From Yiqing Luo's angle, she couldn't see that person's face clearly. But, Yiqing Luo had a very familiar feeling. This person looks very familiar. Netherworld. It's you. A surprised voice came from the side. Yiqing Luo was stunned. This name made her mind to recall that person whom she met when she entered the godless array and entered the 21st century. That person named Netherworld. It's him. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.